We begin tonight with a major problem that could cost Donald Trump and the Republicans the midterm elections. At the Kennedy Center, the traditional New Year's Eve concert has been canceled. As you know, the administration unilaterally renamed the Kennedy Center to include Donald Trump's name, a move that lawmakers say was patently illegal. And some musicians have taken the president's actions to heart, refusing to perform at the storied venue. For some, it is a matter of principle over profit. As one musician put it, quote, "Losing my integrity would cost me more than any paycheck." Self-indulgent vanity projects, though, have preoccupied this president in his second term, and the Kennedy Center is merely the latest example of the president's edifice complex. His obsession with the trappings of autocratic grandeur extends to various White House projects, ranging from the mundane, like gilding the Oval Office and remodeling the Lincoln bathroom in marble, to the absolutely outrageous, like paving over the Rose Garden and demolishing the East Wing to make way for a $400 million ballroom.
Meanwhile, Trump is clearly feeling the pressure. And the reason is obvious. New articles of impeachment are rapidly moving through Congress, and legal experts say that the Senate can still conduct a trial against him. House Democrats are not backing down at all. They have filed multiple fresh impeachment resolutions, accusing Trump of abuse of power, corruption, tyranny, and threatening lawmakers and judges with serious allegations. Constitutional scholars are also reminding us that a Senate impeachment trial, whether it happens while he is still in office or afterward, could lead to real criminal accountability. That's why, as soon as Trump senses that the impeachment efforts are gaining momentum again, he immediately goes into defensive mode.
And the president's DIY tendencies haven't been confined to the White House. Trump has festooned multiple government buildings with enormous banners bearing the image of his own face. And in his free time, Trump golfs or attends lavish parties at his Florida beach club Mar-a-Lago. And that tone-deaf behavior is setting off alarm bells. Take a listen.
His obsession with those kinds of issues actually are a political problem for him. I mean, people are sitting around and thinking about how they're going to pay their bills, and he seems obsessed with gold and putting his name on things and remodeling buildings and rebuilding monuments to himself.
There's an impeachment resolution making its rounds in Congress, introduced on April 28, 2025, by Reverend Rashida and others, which lays out 7 charges against him. These include obstruction of justice, misuse of Congress's power over appropriations, abuse of trade powers and international aggression, violation of First Amendment rights, and bribery and corruption, with a final catch-all labeled tyranny. Then on May 14, 2025, another resolution popped up, adding even more potential charges related to high crimes and misdemeanors. So the playing field is getting hectic, with all these articles of impeachment swirling around. There's the obstruction of justice charge, a pretty serious one, another relating to bribery and corruption, and of course tyranny as the last article. Fast forward to June 24th, 2025, and there's a draft of impeachment text that's been shared on the Hill, courtesy of Fox News. This version zeroes in on Trump's intimidating remarks about jail time for opponents, his blatant disregard for court orders, and his attempts to weaponize the Department of Justice. It even points back to his 2025 speech, where he discussed putting critics behind bars. Legal experts from places like Just Security have weighed in, arguing that history shows the Senate can indeed hold an impeachment trial even after a president has vacated the office. This suggests that if impeachment were to happen now, it could lead to criminal investigations and prosecutions for Trump once he's out of power. So, if you look at the key targets of those charges, they include threatening to jail opponents, ignoring court orders, and misusing the DOJ. Diving deeper into what all this means, it becomes clear that Trump is dealing with the heavy weight of possible removal and future legal troubles. If the impeachment efforts gain momentum and these legal analysts are correct about post-term trials, it shifts from merely losing office to a real nightmare situation for him. Trump is really feeling the heat as he risks losing the legal protections that come with being president, and he's staring down the possibility of prison. There's a big resolution introduced on April 28, 2025 by Representative Rashida Tlaib and some others. This resolution, called HRES 353, brings forth 7 articles of impeachment against him. It's quite a list. The first of those articles is obstruction of justice, which sets the whole thing in motion. Following that is the usurpation of Congress's appropriations power, which just means he took control over funding that he wasn't authorized to manage. Next on the list, we have the abuse of trade powers along with some international aggression, both critiquing his handling of tariffs and foreign policy, all serious enough to qualify as impeachable offenses. The fourth article addresses the violation of First Amendment rights, highlighting how his actions broke these essential freedoms. Then there's bribery and corruption, also serious charges that are related. Finally, there's a 7th article that simply points to tyranny, labeling his behavior as tyrannical. After that, on May 14, 2025, another resolution, HRE 450, was introduced. This one also goes after Trump, accusing him of high crimes and misdemeanors, which is the constitutional basis for impeachment. It's really widening the range of possible charges that could be considered for impeachment and is causing quite a stir in the House. Then on June 24, 2025, some draft impeachment text started making its rounds on Capitol Hill, as reported by Fox News. It showed that House members are still working on refining new articles, signifying that this process is far from over. The House members have been busy refining new articles of impeachment, and the focus is specifically on some of Trump's more alarming comments, like his threats to jail his opponents. This kind of rhetoric is crucial because it turns into evidence for the impeachment process. Alongside these threats, there's also the issue of his defiance of court orders, which refers to him ignoring judges' rulings. Then we have the matter of him seemingly weaponizing the Justice Department against his critics, which is another significant point. One of the pieces of evidence here comes directly from his speech about the Justice Department in 2025, where he mentioned putting critics in jail. It's pretty wild that his own words are being used against him in the impeachment articles. Legal analysts from Just Security and others have pointed out that historically the Senate can still conduct an impeachment trial even after a president has left office. This finding is quite significant because it extends the potential consequences beyond just his term, meaning that a successful impeachment now could lead to criminal investigations and potential prosecutions later on once he's out of power. So, the implications are clear. Impeachment could set the stage for those criminal cases to follow. It's worth noting that while impeachment itself doesn't throw someone in prison, it does create a formal record of alleged crimes and abuses. This record is something prosecutors can draw from later, and that kind of documentation is a key part of the process. It's pretty ironic how much Trump talks about throwing his enemies in jail, especially when you consider how that's come back to bite him. In a speech in 2025, he threatened to lock up Biden's officials, journalists, and judges, which seems to be backfiring. The more he goes on about jailing people, the more documents and impeachment articles keep piling up, showing just how exposed he really is. Now, those articles aren't just historic, they're significant because they show he's running his second term in a situation filled with the threat of removal and possible future prosecution. It's not your usual political opposition. Lawmakers are still drafting and filing these articles, which makes it clear that the stakes are incredibly high for him. If these impeachment efforts pick up steam and legal experts are right about trials that could happen after his term, the situation turns into a nightmare for him. It's not just about losing his office. There's also the terrifying prospect of losing the legal protections that come with being president, leaving him open to facing genuine prison time in the future. So, as everything unfolds in Congress with these new impeachment articles, it really sets the stage for what lies ahead for his presidency and his legal troubles. There's a lot going on with the impeachment process, especially when you think about how it could pave the way for legal troubles down the line for Trump once he's no longer under the presidency's protective shield. We've got these congressional resolutions and legal analyses laying everything out. Back on the 28th of April in 2025, Representative Rashida introduced House Resolution 353, which outlined 7 articles of impeachment against Trump. These charges include things like obstruction of justice, abuse of trade powers, violation of First Amendment rights, bribery, and even a charge labeled tyranny. Then, not much later on the 14th of May in the same year, another resolution, House Resolution 415, was brought to the table. This one also accuses Trump of high crimes and misdemeanors, adding to the growing list of impeachment articles circulating around Congress. By June 24, 2025, they were working on refining a draft impeachment text that specifically highlighted Trump's threats to jail opponents, his refusal to follow court orders, and attempts to misuse the Department of Justice. Legal folks over at Just Security have pointed out that there's a precedent for the Senate to conduct an impeachment trial even after a president has exited office. That means if they succeed with the impeachment now, it could lead to criminal inquiries and possibly prosecutions later on. It's quite the situation, really. Each of those 7 articles dives into serious allegations, creating a formal record of his alleged misdeeds that could come back to haunt him. Every time Trump opens his mouth with his own jail threats, it's like he's adding more to this list of documented issues that could be held against him. The implications for 2026 could hinge on whether this impeachment process moves forward, progresses to a trial, and creates a lasting historical record. Legal experts have confirmed that even after serving, he could still be liable. At its core, the big question is whether this record really matters in the long run, and it definitely does. We're talking about the consequences of impeachment, particularly for someone like Trump. Once he leaves office, that shield of presidency he's relied on for protection will disappear, and it's honestly hard to believe he hasn't considered how serious that could be. The fears of prison start looming when you think about the prosecutions that might follow. Experts say that even after his term ends, the Senate can still hold a trial. That's quite the revelation, especially since history shows that post-term trials are indeed constitutional. So you can see why he rages against impeachment efforts, which by the way are still happening despite the Republican majority in the Senate. They might acquit him for now, but the record of those impeachment articles remains, waiting for whenever he might no longer have that presidential protection. This record is crucial. It documents everything from alleged obstruction to the more serious accusations of tyranny, all laid out in several articles of impeachment. There were even 7 articles in total, each one comprehensive and carefully crafted to highlight his conduct during his second term. I mean, it's all there, filed by Congress while he was still in office, creating a paper trail that prosecutors can revisit later when he's on his own. This is the reality he faces, and it seems to be what keeps him anxious about the future. So here's the scoop. There's this record of conduct that's got a ton of folks worried, and it's creating quite a stir in Congress. People are gathering evidence and drafting articles of impeachment, all aimed at documenting the alleged crimes attributed to him. We're talking serious stuff here. Obstruction, bribery, even tyranny, which by the way is an absolutely unprecedented charge against a sitting president. What's even more intriguing is that this impeachment process is laying down a foundation that could lead to prosecution once he leaves office. Right now, the presidency offers a kind of temporary shield, but once that term ends, so does that protection, and that's where his fear kicks in. There's a solid chance that the record being created now might be used against him later, when he's more vulnerable after leaving. Experts have weighed in, specifically from Just Security, confirming that a trial could potentially happen after his term, which adds to the overall tension. The concern is real because if he ends up being convicted on criminal charges stemming from this impeachment record, prison could very well be the consequence. So he's got every reason to be anxious about what lies ahead, especially when it's all based on this record that's being made right now. Trump is definitely feeling uneasy about the idea of ending up in prison, especially as new impeachment articles are zooming through Congress. Legal experts are pointing out that the Senate could still put him on trial, even if he manages to dodge these accusations for now. House Democrats are not holding back. They've filed multiple impeachment resolutions that accuse him of a whole range of serious stuff, including abuse of power, corruption, tyranny, and making threats against lawmakers and judges. One resolution, introduced by Representative Rashida and others on the 28th of April 2025, lays out 7 articles of impeachment. These include things like obstruction of justice, undermining Congress's power over appropriations, misusing trade powers, international aggression, violating First Amendment rights, bribery, and a catch-all article labeled tyranny. Then there's another resolution from the 14th of May 2025, which also charges Trump with high crimes and misdemeanors. It gets even more interesting as a draft of impeachment articles from June 24, 2025, shows House members sharpening their focus on specific threats Trump has made about jailing his opponents, ignoring court orders, and trying to use the Department of Justice for his own gain. They even called him out for that speech he gave in 2025, where he mentioned wanting to throw critics in jail. Analysts from Just Security and other places remind us that history suggests the Senate can still carry out an impeachment trial after a president has left office. That means if they manage to impeach him now, it could lead to criminal investigations and potential prosecution later on once he's out of the picture. Impeachment itself doesn't send anyone to prison, but it does create an official record of alleged wrongdoings that prosecutors can use down the line, especially concerning issues like obstruction, bribery, and misuse of force. It's a bit ironic that Trump's own tough talk about locking up his enemies seems to be coming back to haunt him. The more he goes on about jail time for others, the more articles of impeachment and legal memos are stacking up against him. It's pretty wild to think about how Trump is navigating his second term with impeachment articles being drafted and filed. This isn't your usual political rivalry. It's more like he's on a tight rope with the looming threat of removal and possible legal trouble hanging over him. The real kicker here is the chance that his worst fears might actually come true. He could not only lose his position, but also the legal protections that come with being president, leaving him vulnerable to some serious prison time in the future. As these impeachment efforts progress, they're creating a formal record of the accusations against him. This record could very well be used by prosecutors to push for charges when he's no longer shielded by the presidency. I'm going to stay on top of this situation, especially since legal experts are pointing out that the Senate can still hold a trial even after he's out of office. This makes it feel like the impeachment process could set the groundwork for potential prosecution down the road. Make sure to stay tuned so you won't miss any updates.